So to get started with this one, I just have a sphere in the center and I'm pointing my camera at it. Then in the shading tab here, I just have a 3D viewport and a node editor set up. Then for the lighting, if I go to rendered preview, I'm using the cycles, and then I just unchecked scene world, selected the force HDRI, and then I rotated it 45 degrees. Then you can go ahead and press new, and we're good to get started. I'm going to go ahead and name this Smokey Quartz real quick, just like that. Then I'll press Shift A and search up a noise texture, and we're going to be doing the color mixing for our material first, then we'll get into the roughness and then the bump right after. So then we're going to check the Node Wrangler add-on in Edit Preferences Add-ons and just search up Node Wrangler to make sure you have that checked so you have all the shortcuts. Then with this noise texture selected, we can go ahead and press Ctrl and T, just like this. It'll give us our mapping and texture coordinate. Then we can take our object into the vector. And if we Control Shift left click on this noise texture, we can preview it. I'm just going to grab this guy and move him over here. Then if you hold Shift and right click, you can sort of cut over this and it'll give you this extra node here. We're just going to use this to stay more organized. So then with this noise texture, I'm going to adjust him a little bit. I'm going to take his scale and up it to a 15, the detail to a 12, just like this. Then we're going to up some of the contrast going on here. So I'll hit Shift A, search for a map range node, place that right after this. And so the factor is going into the value. Then I'm going to take this from minimum value and up it to a 0.2, and then the from maximum and drop it to a 0.8. So this is going to bring the whites and the blacks closer together. So then we're going to be adding several levels of detail. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this into a mask. So I'm going to hit Shift A and search for a math node. I'm going to place it right after. I'm going to change the function to greater than. I'm going to change this value to a 1 right now. So currently it's returning nothing because it is saying if it's greater than 1 and all these values are between 0 and 1. So currently it's returning nothing, but when we do the next layer, we can have it say half, and it will only cover half of the texture. Anyways, so I'll hit Shift A, and so I'm going to search for Mix RGB now. I'm going to place that over here. Then I'm going to place this greater than into the factor, and I'm going to take the color, or the result of the map range, I should say, into the color 1, and then color 2 is going to be a black. Oops. Just like this. Now if I Control Shift and left click this Mix RGB node, we can see that it looks exactly the same as our map range. But if we were to change this greater than to a half, then we only cover half and the rest is black. And that is what we're going to be doing for this next one. So I'm going to select these 4 nodes right here and press Control Shift D and move him up here. So now with this guy, we're going to take the scale of the noise texture and drop him to a 10. So I'll go ahead and Control Shift left click this Mix RGB right here so we can see what's going on. And in the meantime, I'll actually take this Mix RGB and plug it into color 2. Currently, it's not going to change anything, but it will in a second. So, like I said, this scale to a 10. Then we're going to take this greater than and put it to a 0.5. Now we can see that they're mixing together here, because before this isn't cut in, it's all black, and then this fills in the black, just like this. Nice. So then I'm going to take these guys right here, or it's just the top 4, and then press Control Shift D one more time, move them up. Then I'm going to Control right click and cut over this so we get rid of it. Then I'll take this Mix RGB into here, Control Shift left click, change this greater than to a 0.333, or you can type in 1 divided by 3, just like that. Then I'm going to take this noise texture and then drop his scale to a 5. So now we can see that we have 3 levels of detail in what's going to be our color. Sweet. Now we're going to take the result of this and factor it into our browns. So I'll Shift A, search for our Mix RGB. Then I'm going to plug this color into the factor. Then I'm also going to be factoring this into the roughness in just a little bit, or actually into the color more, but then the roughness will be factored in with this guy. But I'm going to hit Shift A and search for a map range node here. And this is going to help us apply a mask later on. And on this guy, I'm just going to change him the from maximum to a 0.45, and then the to minimum to a 0.4, just so we can get some more solid whites in here, bring in the whites and make the lowest value not a black. So then on this Mix RGB, I'll Control Shift and left click him. Currently it's all the same color, and so we need to change that to our browns. So the hex value on this first guy is going to be a 35230B. Again, that is a 35230B, just like that. Then this color 2 is going to be brown as well, but darker. It's going to be a 190F0B. Again, that is 190F0B. just like that. Nice, so now we have our browns. Then we're going to be mixing this with some sort of cloudy whites. So I'm going to hit Shift A, search for Mix RGB, put that here. Then I'm going to take this color into color 2. And then for color 1, we're not going to be leaving it on this because we want it to be sort of noisy. I'm just actually going to take this noise texture in this map range and press Ctrl Shift D, move them up here. Then to keep this more organized, I'll press Shift, right click, make this extra node and grab them in and move them this way, just so we can see a clear path to where this is coming from and where it's going. So then, and if we preview this noise texture real quick, it's not exactly giving us the effect we want. And so I think I want to switch this noise texture out for a Musgrave texture because we sort of want this to be sort of like flaky and sort of cloudy, but this is sort of just copying all the effects we have on the color. So I'm going to hit Shift A and I'll search for a Musgrave texture instead. Then I'm going to take this guy, plug him in here. Then I'm just going to take this noise texture and delete him. Then I'll take this Musgrave texture into here. Cool, so this is much better now. So on this noise texture, it's actually not better yet, but it will be. I'm going to change the FBM to a multifractal. I'm going to up the scale to a 20. Change the detail to a 10. The dimension to a 0.1. This is where it starts looking right. There we go. And I'm going to change this map range node a bit too. I'm going to bring all the values up towards white. So this from minimum, I'm going to bring to a 0.8. And this from maximum to a 0.9. So now we have the white flakes and the black flakes looking really good. So then I'll simply just take this guy into color 1 right here. And if I Control Shift and left click him, we can see that we have lots of clouds going on. And I'm going to switch this factor to 0.75. And that's going to give us some more blur between them. But obviously this is not the final product of the color because it's too cloudy. So I'm going to take this mix node, I'll press Shift D, just like this. I'm going to take this color into color 1 and our browns into color 2. So we can Control Shift and left click, we can see that it's not really looking that great. Then we'll take this map range that we made earlier, plug it into the factor, and now we can see the clouds appearing much more nicely. So then we kind of ran into a little bit of prohibited space here, so I'm going to grab this and move it over here, and then I'll take this color into our base color, just like this. Now if we Control Shift and left click, we can see that we have our colors going around here pretty nicely. However, we don't have any bump occurring. And so that step is pretty easy as well. So to start that, I'm going to go down here, I'll press Shift A and search for a Voronoi texture. We're going to be doing a lot of what we did up here with the noise textures. So it's going to be quite a bit of duplicating. And so that's going to make it really easy. So then with this Voronoi, I'll just plug in our vector from the mapping. I'm going to Shift right click again to give us this guy to have some more cleanness in our design here. And before we do this, we can go ahead and do the roughness just so I don't forget. So I'm going to press Shift A, search for our map range node just like this. I'm going to take the color from this bottom mix node here into the value. Then on this map range, I'm going to change the from maximum. I'm going to bring it all the way down to a 0.6, not a 6 to a 0.6. And then this 2 minimum to a 0.2 because that's what we want the minimum roughness to be. And the max roughness we want to be like a 0.8. So that's what I'll leave there. Then I can just plug this into the roughness like that. Awesome. Now we can go back to the Voronoi. I'll Control Shift and left click him to get a nice preview. And I'm actually going to preview the color, so I'll Control Shift left click one more time. Then I'm going to change this guy's scale up to a 200 because we want this to be the super fine stuff. And then I'll press Shift A. I'm going to search for a math node, put it right after this color, change the function to greater than, and then leave it on a 1 for now, just like we did before on the bottom one. Then I'll press Shift A, search for our Mix RGB, plug him into the factor, plug our Voronoi color into color 1, just like this, and then color 2 will be a black. So if we Control left click this guy, we can see that it's the same as it was before. But it's not going to be on these next ones, so I'm going to grab this, move them down. I'm going to press Control Shift D, oops, not Control Shift S, Control Shift D, move them up here. Control Shift left click this guy. I'm going to change his scale to a 175. And then plug this into color 2. Then change this threshold to 0.5, just like this. So now you can see the change in the mix. Obviously, these are still super small, so it's not easy to see the change. But if I change this to like a 5, obviously you can tell that it is working. So let's bring that back up to a 175. So then I'm going to take these guys again, just Control Shift D, Control and right click to cut that off. Bring in this mix node instead. Change this greater than threshold to a 0.333 or a 1 divided by 3, just like that. and then change this scale down to a 150. Nice. So now if I preview this guy, we can see this. Now we're going to get into 2 more levels of detail, and they're going to be a lot smaller, or a lot bigger, I should say. Let's grab this, move him down, and then Control-Shift-D this guy, Control right-click, bring this color up into here. I don't know why I did that. And then we're going to change the threshold on this one to a 0.1. And then the scale on this guy, we're going to change to a 50. And then I'll Control-Shift left-click to preview. And so we can see now that we have these bigger shapes, and these are going to be factoring into the bump and stuff, just so that we have some more variety. So everything's not super fine, and it's going to really make it look a little bit more natural. Then we're going to do that one more time. So with these, I'll Control-Shift-D, Control right-click, bring this color up instead, Control-Shift left-click, and then we're going to change the scale all the way down to 25. And that's going to give us these bigger ones right here. Sweet. So now let's just factor this into our bump. And to visualize this better, because bumps work in black and white, I'm just going to add a map range node. We're not going to change the values on this guy, and we'll just put it after this mix. So on a map range node, essentially what is happening is the whiter the value is, the higher it's going to be, and the blacker the value is, the lower it's going to be on the height map. So that's why I added this, so you can visualize that a little bit better. But anyways, I'm just going to hit Shift-A and search for a bump node. Then I'll take this result of the map range into our height. Then I'll take this normal into this normal. And if we Control-Shift and left-click, we can see that it's a little bit too strong for my liking. It's just a little bit too rocky. So I'm going to take the strength down to a 0.35. So we can still see the effects of it, but it is a lot less annoying in your face kind of a thing. So now that we've done that, we have a finished material. So I'll go ahead over to layout, and I'll show you what it's looking like on a rock model. So in my thing, I have this stuff set up for thumbnails already. I just used the rock generator. So you can hit Shift-A, mesh, rock generator. And to get that, you just go to edit preferences, search for extra mesh, the extra mesh add-on, and then you can get it there. But anyways, if I enable these rocks real quick, I'll go ahead and select all of them, then select this guy, Control-L, link materials. Now, if I go to rendered preview, just like this, move to daisies, we can see once the samples get up a little bit, because we're only on like 10 right now, we can see that it starts looking really cool and like a sort of a cloudy rock material. It is pretty rough though, so you may want to lower the strength of the bump just a little bit so that we get a little bit less ridges on this guy, but I think it looks pretty good the way it is, because it looks sort of like organic, like maybe it's been sitting there for a really long time and started like sort of peeling almost. And so yeah, it's a really cool pattern on the rock. Obviously, you can always adjust that with strength, because some of you may not like how bumpy it is, so you can just this like a 0.1, head back over to layout, and then when the samples get up, you can see that it's a lot smoother and less bumpy, or less finely bumped. But yeah, it's whatever you prefer. Anyways, I will see you guys in the next one. Hopefully you enjoyed.